Welcome back to the You Not Me podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the hidden driver of career growth. A lot of people think that building a career comes down to their resume or their academic achievements or what they've done in past jobs. But really, at the end of the day, none of that matters at all. It's actually built on doing the right thing over a period of time when it costs you something. And when it comes down to it, that really can be boiled down to character. Character, of course, is not built in easy moments. It's always revealed in hard ones. And I've always loved, and I know Chris has as well, what Oswald Chambers says, which is that character is essentially when the appearance and the reality are exactly the same. Probably one of the best ways to illustrate character, as Chris has spoken about before, is this concept that any athlete knows, whether past or present, and that is this concept of the line when you're running. Of course, when you're doing sprints back and forth on the field or on the court with your teammates, you can't wait for it to end. There's always that temptation in the back of your mind to just stop a foot short of the line when your coach isn't looking. Even if your teammates and your coach do hold you to a standard, well, whenever you're doing your preseason running on your own, it's even easier to cut corners and do that. So today we're going to talk about why character is really the primary growth driver when it comes to career. And with that, Chris and Andrew, welcome in today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Jared.
So one of the things I want to talk about first is just how character leads to trust when it comes to building a career. I would say that trust is really the most valuable metric when it comes to employment, relationships, really anything that you're doing in life. If you can't trust anyone, then they're not really worth anything to you. So just start by talking about the connection between character and trust.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just, are you consistent, and how do you show up, not just one day a week or on the big moments, but every single minute of every day. And it's like the old saying we've talked about is, trust is built in drops, but it's lost in buckets. And so we just forget that all those little moments, whether it's a habit or something that we do, whether people are watching or not, it's almost like a vote even for ourselves internally to know who we are character wise. And I think a lot of times we're so focused on what other people see, but we can't hide from the person within. Like, we know who we are, we know where we fall short, where we've maybe cut corners, we know where we've made some decisions that maybe weren't the best, because we had short-sighted views that we thought we could get away with, but then we don't. And then the question is are you actually truly repentant, and are you sad for what you did, or are you sad you got caught, right? And there's a big difference in character right there too. Is the person that has true character, if they do something wrong and someone holds them accountable, someone calls them out, they they hold their head down, and their heart is broken, versus like being angry they got caught, and but then doing the same thing over again because, maybe no one will catch me this time. And so I think it's just consistency is kind of like you said, when you're training in preseason, no one's watching. What are you doing? And that's, I think, one of the biggest examples is just purely consistency.
Yeah. And in those like little moments, people are watching. If you're a parent, I think we all know that our kids are watching our every move, and they see and they learn from kind of our example in those little moments. If you're a manager or working at a company, your coworkers, your employees, they see your character. And I also have seen time and time again people that want to kind of be the go-to person on their team, and they don't recognize and realize that, hey, in order to get there, it really is about consistency and being the go-to person in those small moments that will turn into bigger moments.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen it, especially my youngest son. He picked up way more by what he saw versus what I said. And there are times I'm like, oh, that's me. He saw me do that. And so again, it's those consistent moments. But again, over time, I think even as my heart has even gotten better and becoming more consistent, it's a great example to our children, like you said. Our kids are watching all the time, and they see, and they're way wiser than we expect them to be at young ages, and they pick things up. So the question is, what are they picking up? And hopefully, it's good character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's important for people to remember that character is different than reputation. Um, Character is kind of like a muscle that you can build. And it's built just like training in the gym, one rep at a time. It's built one choice at a time with character. And I think, especially in moments when temptation's involved, whether it's something you find alluring, or some kind of comfort that, you know, take the easy road instead of going the hard road, even if the hard road's the right one to take. Of course, something's not going to be tempting unless it's alluring to you. You know, like very few people are like, oh, I'm just craving sardines at night, for example. Like people want chocolate ice cream or something like that, or I don't know, whatever. But usually it's those things that we lust after. And in that moment, when we're standing at that decision, that's when the choice really presents itself. So, talk about how You Not Me kind of gives you the tools to make good choices in those moments when you really do face a real temptation and there is a real choice to confront.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason that I came up with "You Not Me" being 3 words so short to remind yourself, whether it's before you go into an interaction, in the middle of an interaction with somebody, or even post-interaction, to where you can remind yourself that, "I'm living for you, not for me, and I wanna make sure you're better coming out of this," or whatever the interaction is. And that's where we can check ourselves, and we can be reminded, because if we're all honest, again, back to, if you have 2 kids, a 2-year-old here with a toy and a 2-year-old here without a toy, what happens? The 2-year-old without a toy tries to take the toy from the 2-year-old with a toy, and they break out into a fight. Very rarely, really basically never, do you see a 2-year-old that says, "Hey, Johnny, he doesn't have a toy and I feel bad for him. And so I would love to share this great time I've had with a toy, and let me give it to him so he can play with it and have the great same time I am." And so that's not something that is innate in us. Like, that has to be taught. And that's a muscle memory. That's a character to say, hey, I can look outside and see the need in somebody else around me. And I want to make sure I not only meet that need, but how can I make sure that they feel valued, cared for, and loved? And so that's what You Not Me is trying to do, is give you the mindset of looking outward instead of inward, and saying, how can, when I make this decision, or the words that I speak, that they actually give life and make someone's life better versus just myself. And then I think that's how we can consistently be consistent, is that reminder of who matters most. Is it me and what I want, or is it the other person in front of me, that my goal is to make sure they feel valued, cared for, and loved?
Mhm. And when the going gets tough, it's those consistent people are the ones that get called on. And I think about at work in my last company during COVID, it was like all of our core company processes and all the employees got sent home, and there was just a lot around that. But the people that got tapped on the shoulder to navigate the company through that were the people who had been through the fire before, in previous storms, and were consistent. And they knew that when they were called upon, they knew what kind of person would show up because they were consistent. And I think about personally, we all have probably a close friend that if we got into a really difficult personal circumstance, there's probably somebody we would call, uh, because they're consistent. We know that in this moment we're going to call on this person because because they've been consistent, and we know the version that's going to show up.
And actually, a friend of mine sent me something over Instagram, and it was very, very kind, and it was um, super encouraging that he sent this. But and he said his caption was, "This is you," and it was about a friend that sits in you, sits with you in the mud and the hard times, the good times, all these times. And it's like, that's also a person that you're talking about. It's a person of character. When
Mhm.
when times are hard, whether they're going through a suffering trial, or even you guys, maybe have a disagreement, but you actually stay in the relationship. You actually work through it, and you have the heart to listen, to understand, but you care so deeply about that person that your character and care for that person pulls you through that relationship. Instead of breaking it apart, it actually pulls the two of you together because you both care deeply about each other. And I think that's what's missing today. And whether it's, marriages that fall apart, or friendships, or even the workplace. I mean, do companies have character when they look at hard and lean times? Do they do everything they can to try to make sure they take care of their people? Or do they say, well, you know what, those people are expendable and we just need to make sure that the main company and my position stays and I make a lot of money? The people with character, the ones that are the great leaders, the ones that will always be promoted into places of leadership, are the ones that have great character, that people know they can count on to make wise decisions that are for others, not that are selfish.
Well said.
Yeah, we're starting to dig into this idea of hard times now, and I'm curious as to why hard times break people. I think that the obvious answer is, well, they're hard and that's painful and they're suffering. But I think that there's something beyond the actual pain that actually wears people down when they're going through difficult times. So I'd like for you guys to just explore that.
Yeah, I think something that I've seen in my last company, they did a great job of supporting people in crisis, and I personally kind of worked alongside people and worked with people that were impacted by natural disasters, man-made disasters. I remember talking to somebody that was uh, Hurricane Harvey. She lived in Port Arthur, Texas. Hurricane Harvey was approaching where she was living, and she and her husband were on an air mattress, and the waters were coming into her home. And then we got disconnected, and I didn't know what had happened. And then I actually reconnected with her next day when I heard that she was evacuated in a dump truck in the middle of the storm. What she said, and others have said, is, there was just that expectation of, this is never going to happen to me, or how did this happen to me? And I think it's this expectation that, we think that things are going to be perfect, that we're not going to experience adversity, we're not going to experience challenge. And when it comes, what is our posture going to be? And what I saw in her posture was just unbelievable patience and resilience and character. And she was able to lift up and support her teammates. She was a manager in the office that she worked in. But again, I think that that's one that, it's like when you're poked, what comes out of you? And, in that situation, when she was poked, what came out of her was character and grace and leadership.
Mm. Yeah, there's actually Oswald Chambers has a quote that when a grape is squeezed, and say you're a grape going through a hard time, when the grape is squeezed, what comes out? Wine, WINE, or wine, WHINE? Which is it that's coming out? And it's interesting. I heard Tim Keller tell a story about a surgeon named Dr. Paul Brand, who is an English surgeon. He spent half his time in India, half his time in the United States, and he said what was so interesting is, in the United States, we live such a comfortable life, so much more comfortable than, say, India and a lot of countries around the world. And he said that what he saw was that our comfort didn't allow us to suffer and handle suffering well, because he said in India there's a lot of suffering and people were prepared for it. They were, ready for it, etc. And he said two-thirds of the trial of suffering in the US was shock that they were suffering, and that they were surprised. And I think even that's the hard thing with people, with faith, is they're like, well, okay, I have a faith now and I'm doing all the right things. And but then what happens if the right thing, the quote, right thing that you thought was going to happen, or the positive outcome that you expected? I did A plus B equals C. So then I did all the right things. Why is this not working? Versus, hey, it didn't work, but what are the intangibles that I have that are going to allow me to get through this hard time that I'm dealing with, and to walk through it well, like, so that it's actually an anchor for me, and holds me in the midst of the storm, versus I put my faith and my trust in my money or my finances or my looks or my job or whatever, and that's gone. And once that's gone, you have nothing, like literally nothing. But what are those things that can actually withstand the storm, no matter what the circumstances around you? Character is something that can't be lost. You have a choice in the fact of whether you continue to have good character or poor character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the corporate world, we don't use the word suffering a lot, but
Mm.
we use stretch assignment. We use there are ways that we can kind of look back on times where there is suffering. I think about jobs that I've had that it was at the time was like a miserable professional season, but I look back on that as the time of most significant growth.
Mm.
I mean, I love it. Like I'm so grateful that I went through those challenging moments because it actually gave me confidence that when the next storm comes, I know my posture and I know kind of how I can act and how I can serve others and I knew that, hey, I've been through a storm. I'm not going to collapse.
Mm.
And, that's where we need them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened in 2008, 9 when we lost everything financially is
Mhm.
I realized I really don't need much. Like the things that I
Mhm.
thought that I needed that we were losing, whether it's finances, house, etc., is, as long as I had a few things, my faith, my family, friends, I could work and go get a job and, somewhere doing something to provide. And we didn't need much. And the problem is we think we need all these things to be happy. But again, back to if you can't just enjoy a simple cup of coffee, how are you going to really enjoy millions of dollars if you can't even enjoy the simple things in life? And
Mhm.
and what do we really need? I mean, even like with eating, we have a saying in my family: if it's healthy and it's edible, eat it. You know what? I mean, look, it may not taste the best, but it's going to be the best thing for you as far as fuel,
Mhm.
health, etc. Versus, yeah, ice cream tastes better than broccoli. Well, I mean, actually, I prefer broccoli over ice cream, but my wife.
Who are you?
My wife calls me weird, so she's like, "Why do you like grass?" I'm like, "I guess I just do. I don't know." But the thing is like, are we willing to actually endure something? Because actually, kind of like you said, the broccoli, for me, the vegetables started tasting great.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed it. Similar to some people, I don't like sushi first time, but then they start to love it. But the
Mhm.
thing is that loss of 2008, 9 prepared me for if a loss comes again, I know how to handle it and I know we're going to be just fine. But also
Mhm.
that's what my faith has done is I know
Mhm.
that the Lord will provide and I know that we'll be just fine. We will have everything we need and he will take care of whatever we need to do. And
Mhm.
and some of it is an expectation in my mind. What do I really think I need? And what do I really need?
Mhm. Well said.
Yeah, I think that for for Christians, a lot of people, especially early in their faith, they tend to see trust in Christ as like a airplane instead of an anchor. So, um, they think that they can just escape suffering and just like, get in this plane, fly away. It's like those planes that the Coast Guard use when they go rescue people on the water. They can like go on the water as well. Um, but that's just not the case. Like we're all swimming in the sea of suffering in life. And we have this anchor for the soul in our faith and our hope and our trust in Christ. Um, so we can't escape it, but we have something that allows us to ride out the storm and not just ride out the storm, but even like give us everything that we need through our suffering. So I want to kind of transition now into what suffering does for us that success actually can't do.
Yeah, well, and I think what's the old saying is that there are three places that you are in life right now. One of the three. It's either you're in the midst of suffering, you're coming out of suffering, or you're about to go into suffering or a trial. Right? I mean, it's like these trials and the suffering is inevitable. And also we're human. We're all broken. We're all gonna make whether it's a mistoned statement to our spouse or our kids, or we're gonna make a decision maybe that isn't wise. And so it's going to happen, but again, I think back to what you were just mentioning, Jared, is um, success causes us to sit back and say, like, "Oh, we're good. I got what I need, and I'm on smooth. I'm good now. I'm good." Whether it's I don't need to grow because I'm at the top because I just won a whole bunch of things and have all these achievements, or like, God, I'm good. You go help somebody else. I've got it from here, or
Mhm.
um, where trials, they help us see that we can't do it by ourselves. We need another.
Mhm.
That's why we need friends. That's what me is community is created for, to create deep, authentic relationships. But then also, the suffering purifies us, and just like gold, our gold is like our faith, and suffering is like the fire. And when gold is first plucked out of the ground, it's full of all these contaminants and different things that need to be separated. And the only way to separate it from the gold, because you can't just like hammer it and you just shatter it into pieces. The only way you can do it is to heat it really hot and then cause it to melt. And then the impurities then separate up and they rise up to the top, and they're able to, the dross is able to be pulled off. But that's how you get to be from whatever 10 karat to 14 karat to 24 karat gold. The more pure, the more impurities have been pulled out. And the same with us is, the more pure our heart, the better and deeper our character is going to be when we've gone through those trials and those hard times, because it's helped us see what matters most, but it's also helped us see what cannot stand the trials, like what can actually stand and go through the trials and come out unscathed. And that's the crazy thing about gold. It's not like wood in a fire, where when you burn wood, you have ashes left over. It's something totally different that's basically not really useful. The gold is actually more pure, and it's never defiled in the fact that it's still gold, like it's
Mhm.
precious. And that's us, is that we are precious. And the part of this life and walking through this life is, how do we learn to grow to become better and more pure in our character and how we care about other people.
Mhm. On every storm ends,
Yep.
and I think that that's what trials show us, is that the rain eventually ends. Some seasons are really, really painful.
Mhm.
It could be months. I mean, it could be a year. I mean, it could be. I mean, there are really hard seasons, but they're not infinite, and the rain does come to an end. And I think that in those moments, that's when we want to quit. That's when we want to kind of pull back. And what I've learned personally is that I can't do it alone.
Mhm.
And when I try to attack a storm alone and on my own and try to carry it on my own shoulders, I crumble. And I have crumbled. And that is a fact. But I think you learn that. You learn that you can't do it alone. You learn, like, for my faith, my faith in Jesus Christ is my savior and my strength. And I do not have the ability to do anything on my own. But it's, again, like, I just think about the corporate setting, and I think about, just time and time again, you need that experience. You need to see storms through. You need to learn from every storm, and it just makes you that much more prepared, and to be consistent and be there for other people.
Yeah. I think, Jared, was it, I can't remember if it was in the book or if it was one of the letters. We talked about the captain that you want on the ship is not the one that's never been in the midst of a storm. It's the one that's been through thousands and hundreds of storms,
Mhm.
because they know how to navigate and handle it. Same in corporate America, same in, any
Mhm.
aspect of life. This is why we need mentors, and not mentors as far as people that are our same age. Mentors is in
Mhm.
the fact, like, they're 10, 15, 20, 30 years older than us. They've been there, done that. And
Mhm.
whether it's marriage, raising kids, corporate America, etc., we need people to help us. And if we think that we know everything, but we have no one around us that's older than us,
Mhm.
we're fools. And I remember that's
Mhm.
one of the things Bill Greer asked me. He's like, "Do you have anybody older than you in your life that you look to and speak to about things?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"No, I don't." And he was kind enough and a man of high enough character that he's like, "Well, I'll be there for you if you want me to."
Mhm.
And so again, back to, um, people of character are the ones that stand in the gap with people in the midst of their trials, and they walk with
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that people who are listening to this could go and dig into more is, we wrote a newsletter not that long ago. I think the title is "Embrace the Rain." It's actually a tagline of this Swedish outerwear company called Stutterheim. And the whole principle of their brand is just that the weather in Sweden's terrible. So you might as well like have good gear to handle it. Um, like if you walk around in Gothenburg, where I lived for a number of years, with no good raincoat, rain pants, and boots, like you're going to be miserable. So the principle there, of course, is to prepare yourself for suffering. Like, don't go into life just thinking you're going to skate by all day long and go from success to success. It's just not the reality. So, invest in a good water repellent raincoat so that, yes, you're going to get wet, but you don't get absolutely soaked. Um, One of the things I think that people also miss on when it comes to suffering is that people have this mentality that suffering's just something you have to try and survive. Like you hear it time and time again. Just got to get through this, you know? And yes, in a lot of ways that's true. But I think it's kind of setting a low bar. And I think that there's something that people can look for in trials, and namely that's being trained. And I think that when it comes to faith, with every subsequent trial, there's some aspect of our faith and our trust in God that's deepened. Um, every single time we come out the other side, we go, huh, God knew what he was doing. Oh, I didn't realize that I had that sin in my life that needed to be pruned and plucked out of me. Or I didn't know that I needed that perspective to then be able to comfort people around me who were going through something really similar. So speak a little bit just on how trials are something that train us, and then maybe lastly, how they're something that transform us.
Okay. Yeah. You know, speaking obviously from my own life, it's been amazing just to see what has come out of some of the hardest times I've ever been through. But I've even seen it in my boys, 22 and 20 years old. They've been through some heavy suffering in a number of different ways, and whether it was physical or emotional or whatever, but what that's allowed them to do, and I think the other thing that's really important in the midst of suffering, you talk about, there's a season for everything, but also there's a time to mourn, there's a time to weep, there's a time to have joy, and sometimes it's sitting in that and having a friend sit in it with you, but at the same time, not just like trying to push it away and try to end it and just, it's actually like reflecting on what is it that's caused this? Is it something that I've done? Is it something someone else has done? Whatever. But then really reflecting on who you are, who you want to be through it. And I think that's the biggest thing that we miss out on when we don't embrace the trials. Like I know Jocko Willing, I mean, he talks about like there's like a social media post he did where it's like, our gear didn't make the trip. Good. Something else didn't happen. Good. Something else didn't happen. Good. And it's like, okay, because we're going to have to figure out a way to critically think, to problem solve, to work through this, and that's going to make us better versus it just being easy and everything having worked out perfectly. And I think that's one of the hardest things is when we're comfortable and things are easy, we start to either stagnate or maybe even regress. And I think, one of the great, I mean, things that you wrote for even for this, Jared, is that, you know, fearlessness is the absence of fear, but anchored, it means the storm is real and you're still standing. And I think it's what is it that is your anchor? Like, what is it that's your foundation that you're going to walk through life holding on to, knowing that, hey, no matter what storm comes, this has got me. And, um, and the thing is there's really only one thing that will withstand every storm, but we all have to ask ourselves, what is the thing that we're clinging on to and saying, I want more of this one thing. And then ask ourselves, will that withstand every storm that'll come? Because if we're honest and we talk through things and you talk to some of the wealthiest, richest people there are, cancer affects the rich just as much as the poor. There are so many things that we think money will protect us from. It doesn't protect us from strained relationships in marriage or with our kids or whatever. And then you talk to people. I've talked to many people in their 60s, 70s, 80s that their biggest regret, and again, this is back to why we started You Not Me, is that the broken relationships that they have because they chase the wrong thing,
Mm-hmm.
the wrong anchor in their life that wasn't an anchor. It was fool's gold. It was something that was whisked away. Or, I mean, again, I saw great investments wiped away in like no time. And that can happen. And again, it's what is it the thing that you're holding on to? And we just have to be honest with ourselves, what that is.
Well, and in the social media age, and people don't do a great job of broadcasting their storms,
Mhm.
and it can feel like everybody. I think about kind of the younger generation, people who are graduating school and launching into the world. It's the reality is that everybody's experiencing storms, and the only way that you can understand that and see that is by being in community. And I think that's that's what where storms have shown me personally. That when things are good, it's like, yeah, you kind of feel on top of the world, you feel in control, you feel like, hey, I I can, I got it all together. And then a storm comes, and then you feel broken, and you realize, okay, what is my true foundation? And we need that humbling to get us to a point where, like, what is our anchor, and what is on our foundation? But again, like, I think about younger people who are maybe coming off of COVID, coming off of kind of more isolation, coming from a place where, yeah, like, everybody's going through storms, and you need to be going alongside that with other people, or else life gets very challenging, because you need those role models. Both, you need mentors who have been there, done that, but you also need people who can encourage you, who are in the storm with you, and you can kind of help navigate it together.
So when you have a stretch assignment in the workplace, obviously today is really all about character and how character is built and formed and in these trials and sufferings that we've been talking about. So when it comes to character and career, when you're facing a stretch assignment, what are some of the ways that people can make good choices when they're coming face to face with these kinds of circumstances in their life?
A few things come to mind, both from personal experience and people that I've seen and people that have mentored me. So, the first thing is really looking at boundaries. And there are a company will take every minute of every day and every ounce of your energy that you're willing to give. And you need to really look at, okay, in the midst of this storm, what are those non-negotiables, and what are those things that are really life-giving? And so you think about your family, you think about your faith, you think about, what are those things that honestly tend to get put on the back burner. When the stretch assignment is taking all your time, things like having dinner with your family, things that will give you life and give you perspective. That, yes, you're in a storm, but there are things that are more important than the storm. And I think that that's a really important perspective coming in. Then I also think it's important for you to think about, what kind of person are you in that storm? Because when you think of, when a storm is happening, and you think about the captain of the ship, and let's say that's your boss, who are going to be the people that are going to be on the lifeboat with them, navigating that storm? It's not a performance list. It's not necessarily the person that has the two MBAs and the credentials and different things. It's really about character and experience and trustworthiness and those pieces. I've seen a lot of examples where people have come in the door with a lot of degrees. They would have their law degree. They would have an MBA. They would have, a lot of pedigrees from different places. But that really doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't mean anything once you get into the door. So I do think it's important that when you're in that stretch assignment, just to journal and kind of check yourself. Okay, what kind of person am I being? Am I doing the things that I would normally do when I'm not in the middle of a storm? Am I encouraging my teammates? Am I, recognizing, and what are those things? And I think if you can do those things, if you can keep good boundaries and focus on, really kind of checking yourself and what kind of person are you, you'll navigate the storm well.
Yeah, it's it's amazing to me when you look at people hiring an employee. and they look at all these like, oh, let's go through your experience. You got this award, this award, this award. And it's like, yeah, that was for the past, and maybe they did do that. And sometimes it's circumstantial. Sometimes they were in the right place, the right time. And what I always tell people is hire for the heart. And when you look at somebody, I mean, and honestly, Jared, I mean, not to put you on the spot or to make you blush, but that's why I asked you to come work with me is because of your heart. And same with you, Andrew. I mean, it's like I saw your heart over time, but also it doesn't take a long time to really see someone's genuine heart. Like you can see in a few instances sometimes that like this person's got something that's special, and those are the people you want to surround yourself with, not just the people that can perform a function well. And it's like, no, I want the person that when the function isn't working right, that they care enough about the people around them to try to see, hey, how do we fix it? How can I help you? Let's move the team forward and let's help our customer the best versus, I don't know. I mean, you fix it. That's not my job or whatever. And it's the heart of people that matter the most. And I mean, even when you think about who you choose to marry, I mean, that's probably, I mean, one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life is who you choose to marry. And the hope is you marry for the heart, for her character or her or his character, because it's not just who they are in their 20s or 30s. It's people change constantly. Like there are some people that say, "Oh, well, wait till you're 30 because so much change happens between 20 and 30." Well, so much change happens between 30 and 40, and 40 and 50, and 50 and 60, and whether it's physical changes, heart changes, you go through trials that totally humble you as a person, um, and the question is like, did you choose the person with the right heart? Because the looks, those fade, and the fun and the parties and all the great time and they make you laugh and all that stuff. But it's like, but are they going to stay there in the moment when things are hard? And I think I mean, what I've seen in my own life, but even with my oldest son, with the number of injuries he had, is that when it's handled the right way, it actually makes you not only better, but it makes you more wise. It makes you have a bigger heart for other people, and it causes you to step back and say, like, hey, I remember when I was going through a hard time, I wasn't exactly who I wanted to be. My heart was bitter, it was broken, it was in pain, I was in physical pain, and sometimes I would say things or do things that it wasn't me, right? We talk about one thing. There's always one thing happening in someone's life that you don't know or see that's causing them to maybe be that way. But when we've been through suffering and we've suffered well, it gives us a heart and a compassion and an empathy for others that are also going through suffering. And that's one of the greatest things a friend can be is look at, whether book of Job, the best thing you could do is sit with a friend and just be there for them, not to say, you did this, you did that, it's your fault, or why is this happening? You must have done something. And it's like, no, just sit and love that person in the midst of the trial.
Yeah, something you said made me think as well. It's so important to get feedback
Mm.
and seek feedback. In a corporate setting, there's something called a 360 feedback. A lot of people know what that is, but that's just where you get feedback from people that work around you. You might have feedback from people who might work for you, who'd be a peer, who would be somebody who would be like a client or your boss, other people, and really giving you insight into the kind of person who you really are. Because there are a lot of people that, they think they're one thing, but they're really acting another, and they're not really asking for the feedback, and people really aren't telling them, but they're talking about them, but they're not actually talking to the person. And real leaders seek out feedback, and they want to know the hard truths so that they can improve. And if you're not in a position where you've gotten that feedback, do that, because that honestly is the most impactful feedback that you can get.
Yeah. Well, I think too, back to what you said about people think they're one thing. I mean, there are a lot of coaches that think they've created this great culture and environment or leaders on a team, but they don't really actually ask and sometimes people are afraid to be honest about how they really feel because they're worried about, someone lashing out at them or, whatever. And it's just sad because some people think they've created this great culture of family, this, that, whatever, and some people are miserable, and they, it's sad because we can self justify and think we're doing we're doing the right thing, but we haven't actually taken the time to ask somebody like, hey, when I do this, how does it make you feel? Like,
Right.
or like, do you truly believe? And this is one of the things with even the You Not Me relational index is part of that whole process. It's like, do you really feel that we care more about your success than ours?
Mhm.
And that's, for someone that reports to a leader to be able to say yes or no to that is a massive answer.
Mhm.
Because if they can truly honestly say, yes, I believe you care about my success more than your own, that person will follow that leader anywhere they
Mhm.
go. Conversely, if it's like, no, I know you only care about me doing well because that means you do well.
Mhm.
I mean, you've lost them right there. And
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest problems in the workplace is people are used for success versus how do I help you be successful because I really deeply care about you.
Mhm.
And if that makes me successful, wonderful. But if I really just focus on you and want you to be successful,
Mhm.
that's a total game changer in the workplace.
Yeah. And something else that again that came to mind, that people want to see is if you're a leader, be transparent about what the gaps are and
Mm,
actually verbalize them. So people know, okay, you get it, you know what the gaps are, and also by verbalizing that, you're holding yourself accountable to actually close them. That's one of the biggest jokes in corporate America is the employee satisfaction survey feedback.
mm,
And there's always a question. Most companies ask it. What will it's the employee's confidence that something is actually going to change from the survey,
mm,
and that's usually really low because people don't really want to change. But again, if you are the kind of leader that really wants to be a you not me leader
mm,
and focused on others, verbalize the gaps with your team to say, hey, here are the gaps. This is where I'm falling short. This is where we're falling short, and I'm gonna hold myself accountable, and I want you all to hold me accountable to close these gaps as well.
Chris and Andrew, thanks for all of the great insight today. I hope that the listeners have appreciated it as much as I have. Um, just to sum up today, continue to cast votes for the future version of yourself that you want to become. That's how you build character one choice at a time. Remember that character is a muscle and that it's something that you can develop. Also, remember that in suffering, you need an anchor. There's no airplane that's going to help you escape. So, what's your anchor? Take some time to reflect on that today. And it's our hope that you'll find an anchor in the you, not me mindset, and even more than that, in faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. This has been the You, Not Me podcast. Thanks for listening.